CrossFitters tend to have really strong lower bodies, really strong upper bodies, and then we see kind of that hinge point a lot of times in that lower back. If an athlete was to come here and say, I'm a CrossFitter, my numbers and this and this are fine, but low back fatigue is a huge issue, what sort of accessory exercises could they throw in?
So I think, especially, in all cases, in strength in general, but in the case of CrossFitters, where fatigue is such a huge factor in everything that you guys do, I think that you really want to try to jack the amount of reps up with the different movements that you're going to pick. There's many, many movements to choose from that can work your lower back really well. Having said that, now Seth, with his programming, you've got to be really careful on where we put some of this stuff, because if we're going to do just 50 rep sets of stuff, or we're going to do duration type stuff that's a minute long, we're going to cause a lot of damage. And so we have to be careful how many sets and how many reps and stuff that we do. However, in my opinion, the best way to do it, the best way to get it done, is to really jack the reps up. And it doesn't have to be sets of 50 necessarily, but 3 sets of 20, something in that range would probably be best in my opinion. Now, the amount of exercises you can choose from is kind of limitless. In my opinion, good mornings are some of the best. The way we did the good mornings yesterday with the cambered bar, in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. Rogue Fitness sells a cambered bar, so everyone kind of has access to it. It's not that expensive. Right. It's worth it. The utilization of bands and chains can be really beneficial as well. This is a chain setup. Again, Rogue Fitness sells chains, many places where you can buy them. You don't have to buy a bunch of stuff to be strong. You don't have to buy a bunch of stuff to be good at the sport that you're doing. This is just me showing you some of what's my opinion, some of the best stuff. You can also buy a band, which is going to be a cheaper option, and you can go like this. You just stand on it. Just steps into it, both feet.
If I could, I don't know, I'm uncoordinated right now.
Yeah. And then he's going to bend down and put it around his neck. Yep, like that. And he's going to do good mornings up this way. And so we can achieve something similar. One of the things with a good morning is the strength curve is a little bit weird. Where you're the strongest is probably about quarter of the way up, 3/4 of the way up, and it just feels like you're off tension if you're trying to be explosive with it. And so by adding chains, utilizing chains or utilizing bands is called accommodating resistance. The weight is heavier at the top and it's lighter at the bottom. Why is that important? It's important because the least advantageous position of the movement that we're about to do is at the bottom. So the chains actually make it safer and make it more productive. When we get into a stronger position, we get into a better position, which is towards the top, the chains will load back onto the barbell. The same thing happens when you use a slingshot. The least advantageous position of a bench press is at the bottom. That's what's most dangerous for your shoulders, and that's where the slingshot will actually take over. So I'll show you how this works. It's just pretty simple. Put the weight behind you here. Then what we're trying to do with the good morning, we're trying to get our shoulders kind of out in front of where our feet are. So I'm trying to stick my shoulders way out here like this and drop down in position here. And just like that. Now we can put some weight on the bar as well. It just depends on strength level. Typically, a lot of CrossFitters that I've dealt with before, they complain about their lower back quite a bit. And their lower back, you see these guys, they're getting off an Aerodyne bike, or they're getting done with this exercise or that exercise, and they're kind of just, loafing around from one spot to the other. It's because there's so much blood in their lower back, their body's unable to pump that back out, and they're unable to recover from all the other stuff that they did. And I think something great that came from CrossFit is the word broken. I think that is such a relatable word. People doing these lifts in these broken positions. However, you guys are racing against the clock or racing against each other, and so sometimes you have no choice but to do something in somewhat of a broken position, and therefore all the inflammation goes to the lower back. So exercises like this in a real high rep range, or you could use the band as he was doing, 3 sets of 20, 3 sets of 25. Now what we're trying to do is, over a period of time, we're trying to build up that work capacity. So we can do that with frequency, we can do that with intensity, which is the amount of weight on the bar. Frequency is just how often you do it. And we can also do it with overall volume. We can manipulate it with overall volume. How many times a week are we going to do it is one way with the frequency. How much weight are we going to use is another way to do it. And then just controlling the amount of reps and sets that you're going to do total. So a new principle to powerlifting, it's kind of interesting that that's newer, but is that the ability to spread fatigue. And I think that's what you would want to do with the CrossFitters. You'd want to try to spread that fatigue out, because if we say we're going to work our lower back once a week and we're going to pile up all these exercises once a week, now the CrossFitter, for lack of a better term, is slowed down for 4 to 8 days, depending on the person. If it's a heavy deadlift session, the person's strong enough to deadlift 500 pounds, they're going to be pretty wiped out for a few days, and they probably can't afford that. Like, who can afford that time off, or who can afford just to sit in a hot tub or a cold bath or whatever? Most of us can't afford that. We got to get back on the bike. We got to get back to training. And so therefore, you'd want to spread fatigue out, and we'd want to figure out a way of manipulating it. So maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we would do the banded good mornings on Monday, 2 sets of 20, which is nothing. Wednesday, we would do 3 sets of 20 here. Friday, maybe we go back to 2 sets of 20 with the band, something like that, just to try to spread it out over the whole week, or maybe it's spread out over a whole month.
So you can build the volume in, you just be strategic so it doesn't affect all the other components of training.
You can't afford it. You can't afford it, right?
I like the way you think.
It goes back to that concept of handling, being able to handle volume, not just doing the volume,
right?
But actually being able to handle it.
Also, too, anytime you're going to incorporate anything new, why not make a commitment to just do it once a week?
Yeah.
Like, let's just start there. You know, your hamstrings suck. I want you to stretch your hamstrings. How often do I want you to stretch them? Let's just shake on it and say once a week, and then we can work on twice a week. It's new, right? It's different. New exercises, you always want to be careful with new exercises. The first time you do an exercise, is it acceptable just to use this weight, even if this is chump change for you? Absolutely. It's new. We're not in a rush, and if you do this long enough, you will get hurt. If you do this long enough, you will get hurt. I can promise you that. And so there's no rush. There's no reason to really jump into anything. So just take your time with it. Add things up over a period of time. The first time that you try something, why not do 1 or 2 sets of it? Get a feel for it. See how it is. Throw it in at the end of the workout. You see a great exercise on the YouTubes. Okay, I like that exercise. That was pretty cool. And just try it after a training session. Just try like 1 set of it just to see if it fits what you're doing.
Awesome. Your pointers for developing maybe that time under tension, with pressing and things of that nature.
Strength aerobics, I think, is huge, and strength aerobics, it's a funny term.
It is.
Bringing together aerobics with strength sounds awkward.